Welcome to Global Tax Talk. I'm Will Morris, and I'm delighted to be joined today by Mike Williams, who is the Director of Business and International Tax at HM Treasury, and I should also add an old friend. Now, Mike, I was actually going to say the sadly outgoing Director, but I decided the grammar isn't great there, so I'm going to say the outgoing, sadly, Director. But it's great to have you with us. Welcome, Mike.
Thank you, Will. I'm not sure about the ordering of those words, but never mind.
I think I got it right in the end. So look, Mike, you've had a remarkable career in the UK government, both at the Old England Revenue, but more particularly at HM Treasury. 30 years at the very top of UK tax policy making. So I can't resist asking you three valedictory questions. So the first is, what has the biggest change been on the international tax scene over those 30 years?
I think the biggest change is the sheer number of countries involved. If you go back 30 years, there were maybe 30 member countries of the OECD. Even just before that, maybe 25. Right. Relatively small numbers. Many of them didn't say a great deal.
Right.
So you were talking about perhaps 5, 10 countries that had a lot of influence. You go now, the inclusive framework's got over 140 countries, much more diverse, much different viewpoints. And how do you then create some sort of consensus, some sort of common understanding?
Right.
I think that's the big difference.
Yep. Well, I'm not going to ask you better or worse. What do you regard as your most significant achievement over that time?
The big achievement is actually the domestic one of sustaining a tax function in our Treasury.
Right.
You recall that in 2004, we moved tax from the Inland Revenues and Customs and Excise into the Treasury. And that was fine, but I think the test was, could you sustain it over time? And I think we have managed to train up such proper tax people.
This is always the toughest question. What's your biggest regret that you didn't get done, or more generally about what didn't happen?
I think there was a missed opportunity on how we tax the digital economy in 2018. We did the interim report that you may recall of the Digital Economy Task Force. We didn't cover the option of having a sort of standardized digital services tax that everybody would have had to apply in the same way. So, where we are now, we will either have Pillar 1, but if we don't have Pillar 1, we will have DSTs that go off in all different directions.
Right. And can I just ask you one follow-up question about that? Do you think it's too late for a standardized DST as the world moved on? Is there any possibility of that at this point?
I think if you go back to 2018, I think only one country had a DST. You've now got a good half a dozen, which inevitably have gone in different directions. I think it's hard once different countries have gone in different directions to make them come back together. Kind of why would they? Right. Whereas if there'd been a standard template at the start, then many countries have been grateful to have that to copy from.
Yeah.
I think that's the difficulty with moving. What if a country in moving towards a standard then gives up revenue? Why should they? Whereas there wasn't any revenue to give up in 2018.
Right. So any other exciting plans, and do they include tax at all?
At the moment, they don't include tax, yet more travel. I think the advantage of not working full-time or even part-time is you suddenly discover that travel long haul on a Tuesday is much cheaper than any other day.
Well, Mike, it's been great having you with us. And I will speak personally. There is going to be a huge Mike Williams-size hole in the international tax scene for as long as I'm around. But it's been a pleasure working with you over the years. And thank you very much for joining us today. And thank you for joining us. And come back again and stay tuned so that you're global tax ready.